ऐसे 315 ऐसे 315 Identifying and assessing the risk of material misstatement through understanding the entity and its environment. ऐसे 315 Identifying and assessing the risk of material misstatement through understanding the entity and its environment. These essay require from the auditors following: to identify and assess the risk of material misstatement, whether due to fraud and error at financial statement level or at assertions level. To understand that to understand the entity to understand the entity's environment, including the entity's internal control. To design, implement and implement the responses to assess the risk of material misstatement. Meaning of risk of material misstatement. Meaning of risk of material misstatement includes the following. पहला, audit procedure performed to obtain an understanding of entity and its environment, including the entity internal control, to identify and assess the risk of material misstatement, whether due to fraud and error at financial statement and assertions level. Component क्या है? Component IAO है inquiry from the management and others within the entity. A for analytical procedure. O for observations and inspections. O for observation and inspections. Understanding required for entities and its environment. Yeah, knowledge of obtaining the knowledge of business. Relevant industry regulatory and other external factor, including the applicable FRF. Nature of entity, including its operations, its ownership and governance structure, types of investment that entity is making and plan to make, the way that entity is structured and how it is financed. Entity selection and applications of accounting policy. Entity selection and accounting policy and reasons for changes there too. उसके बाद entities objective and strategy and those related business risks that may result in risk of material misstatement, measurement and review of entities financial performance. Understanding required for internal control includes auditors shall obtain the understanding of internal control relevant to the audit. Although most control relevant to the audit are likely to relate to financial reporting, not all control that relate to financial reporting are relevant to the audit. While obtaining the understanding of control that are relevant to the audit, auditors should evaluate the design of those control and determine whether they have been properly implemented. Risk of material assessment of risk of material misstatement at overall financial statement level. Risk of material misstatement at overall financial statement level refers to risk of material misstatement that relate pervasively to the financial statement that relate pervasively to the financial statement as a whole or potentially affect many assertions. Risk at financial statement may derive in particular from the deficient control environment. Risk of material misstatement at assertions level refers to risk of material misstatement at assertions level for class of transaction account balance disclosure need to be considered because of such considerations directly assist in determining the nature, time and extent of further audit procedure at assertions level necessary to obtain sufficient and appropriate audit evidence. Assertions that are evaluated transactions occur during the audit. OCA है क्या? पहला occurrence, completeness, accuracy, cutoff and classification. transaction occur during the year. OCSC है क्या? OCSC है क्या मतलब का होता है occurrence, completeness, accuracy, cut off और classifications. Account balance at period ended. ERCV existence, right and obligations. C for completeness, V for valuations. Disclosure, presentation and disclosures. ओ दोनों सी ए इधर आओ, तो उसको O2CA का मतलब होता है ऑकरेंस राइट एंड ऑब्लिगेशंस. ओ सी फॉर कंप्लीटनेस, सी फॉर क्लासिफिकेशन एंड अंडरस्टैंडेबिलिटी, एक्यूरेसी एंड वैल्यूएशंस. रिस्क असेसमेंट प्रोसेस, रिस्क को कैसे असेस करेंगे उसका प्रोसेस क्या है? तो आइडेंटिफाई करो, सबसे पहले आइडेंटिफाई करो, उसके बाद आइडेंटिफाई, एसेस, रिलेट और कंसीडर. आइडेंटिफाई, एसेस, रिलेट और कंसीडर. आइडेंटिफाई, एसेस, रिलेट, कंसीडर. आइडेंटिफाई, एसेस, रिलेट, कंसीडर करना. Identify the risk throughout the process of obtaining the understanding of entity and its environment. Assess the identified risk and evaluate whether they relate more pervasively to the financial statement as a whole, and relate the identified risk that can go wrong at a certain level. Consider the likelihood of misstatement, including the possibility of multiple misstatement. Risks that require a special audit considerations. In exercising the judgment as to which risks are significant, auditors shall consider the following: consider whether the risk is a risk of fraud, whether the risk is related to recent significant economic, accounting or other development, where complexity of the transaction, whether the risk involves significant related party transactions, the degree of subjectivity in the measurement of financial statement, whether the risk involves significant unusual transactions. Revision of risk assessments. Auditors' assessment of risk of material misstatement at a certain level may be changed during the course of audit. As additional audit evidence is obtained, auditors will revise the assessment and modify the further planned audit procedure accordingly. Area to be examined for deficiencies and risk identification in CIS environment. Area to be examined and risk assessment, risk identification in CIS environment program development and maintenance, software system software support, operations including processing of data, control over access of physical CIS security, control over access to specialized CIS utility program. डेफिनेशन ऑफ इंटरनल कंट्रोल या पर्पस ऑफ इंटरनल कंट्रोल पूछेगा तो इसको लिखना रहता है. The process design implemented and maintained by TCWG management and other personnel to provide reasonable assurance about the achievement of organization's objective with regard to reliability of financial information, effectiveness and efficiency of the operation, safeguarding of assets and compliance with applicable law and regulations. Objective क्या है? T8 transactions, whether the transactions are executed in accordance with management general or specific authorizations, whether the transactions are properly recorded in the correct accounting, whether all transactions are promptly recorded at correct amount in the appropriate account in the correct accounting period in which executed, so as to permit the preparation of financial financial information within the framework of recognized accounting policy and practice and relevant statutory requirement, if any, so, and to maintain the accountability for assets. Assets are safeguarded from unauthorized use, access or dispositions. Recorded assets are compared with the actual assets at a reasonable interval, and appropriate actions is taken with regard to any deficiencies there. कंपोनेंट ऑफ इंटरनल कंट्रोल क्या होता है? इंटरनल कंट्रोल का कंपोनेंट 5 होता है. पहला तुमको ये बात ध्यान रखना है, कंट्रोल एनवायरनमेंट, रिस्क असेसमेंट प्रोसेस, इंफॉर्मेशन सिस्टम एरिया टू बी एग्जामिन, कंट्रोल एक्टिविटीज रिलेवेंट टू द ऑडिट एंड मॉनिटरिंग ऑफ कंट्रोल.